Joining me now, I have retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. He's also the co-author of the new book, In God I Trust, Making Our National Motto My Personal Declaration. General, it's always a pleasure to have you. Let me get to the speech in just a moment. Can I first start with the breaking news that just came down? The president just did an exclusive interview with The Telegraph saying he's strongly considering pulling out of NATO, calling the alliance a paper tiger after it didn't join his war in Iran. Your reaction to that, and if there's any chance he actually follows through?
Markie, I hope there's not a chance that he follows through, that NATO has been massively beneficial to us and to the well-being of humanity. I understand that the president likes to express his displeasure with NATO by saying such things, but I think it would be severely detrimental to our U.S. interests to walk away from an alliance that has served us well for the last 7.5 decades.
NATO partners have been reluctant to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We have heard the president's frustrations over that time and time again. It transits about 20% of the world's oil. The president indicated that the White House no longer regards Europe as a reliable defense partner. Does he have a point there?
Markie, the fact that they now have boosted their spending on defense substantially is partly because President Trump has been prodding them by saying such things for the last 10 years or so. And NATO is now stronger as a result. But I don't think some of the benefits of that spending have yielded real military capability yet. But I think that the plans are such that they will. And I want to hang on with NATO so that once they do see the ramifications of that spending into real military capability, that now they're far more capable than just the paper tiger that the president has been lamenting for the last day or so.
And of course, we started this war along with Israel. What did you make of the president yesterday saying that it's now up to other countries to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, that we don't get a lot of our oil from there? So, it's up to you, the other countries, to fix it. I get we don't get a lot of our oil there, but it is a global oil market.
No, you're right, Markie. And so there's 3 reasons why I don't think the president is serious on that. Number one, the prices will remain high of oil because of that global energy market if we walk away without opening the strait. Number two, arguably, humanity could see that we will have lost the war against Iran and that we would have created a net loss if we don't reopen the strait. And then number 3, we've been fighting for 5 weeks and not a single U.S. Navy vessel has transited the strait because it's still too dangerous. There's no one else that could open the strait by force. And if we walk away, it will never open.
So let's talk about expectations now for this evening. I know you'll be watching along with the rest of us when the president addresses the nation. Any chance that he announces an end to the war, you think?
Markie, I guess there is a chance, though yesterday he was telegraphing another 2 to 3 weeks until we achieve our objectives. But what I really hope the president talks about today is how military activity is going to translate or is translating into strategic success. We've heard a lot from Admiral Cooper and Central Command. We've heard a lot from the chairman and the secretary. All of that has been focused on military objectives and military activities. But we need those to translate into strategic successes to achieve strategic objectives, and only the president can communicate that successfully, and I really hope he does that tonight.
And and we heard those comments yesterday. He said it could last 2, maybe 3 more weeks. One more question. Looking ahead to next Monday, that's the sunset of that newest deadline that he has given. You either reopen the strait or we're going to come in and bomb your power plants. Do you think that we will ultimately do that next week? And if so, where would that take us in the next round of this fight?
Markie, I hope that we carry through or follow through on those threats, because thus far, Iran has enjoyed a sanctuary of energy flow while threatening or strangling the energy flow for the rest of the planet. And that is an imbalance that needs to be corrected. And I think by cutting off or threatening to cut off their finances via energy flows, we finally can strike a nerve that can tip the strategic calculus back in our favor. And I hope if the president continues in this war, that he honors those threats if we don't see a negotiated settlement by then.
Yeah, we'll see what the coming days have in store and what tonight's speech has in store as well. Brigadier General John Teichert, thank you, sir. Always a privilege to have you on.
Thank you, Markie.
And don't